Well, welcome to the Good Life by Design podcast with me, Carly Flynn, and my wonderful design friends, Henry McTavish and Hamish Dodd. We're a podcast designed to inspire you to truly live the good life by design. G'day, lads. How you doing? Looking a bit flash today, everybody. Got your shirt on, Henry.
Good. Yeah, I tried to make an effort. So.
Sorry, it's not that you don't
struggle.
That was a weird segue.
You look great, Henry, anyway.
Oh, thank you. Always try.
This week on the pod, we are truly dialing everything back, right? Our topic is, what is the cost, the real cost of renovation? Some would say, well, it costs what it costs at the end of the project. So how can you plan? How can you budget? How can you ensure that you get the best bang for your buck and stay on financial track? I feel like I should have been having this conversation with you guys about a year ago. Although, to be fair, we're doing okay. But, you know, that is the thing you hear the most about renos, Hamish, is that you're over time, you're over budget.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest problems that sort of arises is people making changes mid-flow. Now, that's not saying you shouldn't make a change mid-flow if that's what you're after. You're quite entitled to, as the owner of the property. You just need to understand that things cost. I'm going to give a couple of examples here. First one is putting a window in. Putting a window in is not as simple as it sounds. The window's got to be made. Typically, this is an afterthought, so you've got to get back in the production line, which might waylay the schedule for a little bit to get this extra window. And there's actually a fair amount of work in it. Someone's got to then cut down the framing, add in extra studs if required. They've got to do some more nogging. There's a whole raft of things that have got to be changed in the situation if the project's continued on. So this actually takes time. And if you're paying a builder $60, $65 an hour and it takes them an extra 8 hours, well, it starts to add up on top of the cost of the window. So what you think is a relatively small thing could actually be a $3,000 change, right? It might take 2 days or two, you know. Oh, there it is.
We added 2 windows in and you're on the money, $8,000.
Yep, and there it is. Now, I bet in your mind you didn't think 2 windows was $8,000. Not when you say to yourself, I can buy a small, reasonably priced car for $8,000. You see this, and that is an exact example of where it happens. The other area I often see it is people adding in extra storage. Now, this is a surefire winner. So they realize there's a little bit of vacant space above a ceiling on a half roof. You know, we often get stepped houses now, you know, where they for the top story. That's because of height to boundary rules. And there's this cavity where the roof pitch runs into that second story. Now, that's a great space to put something in. So one walks past the builder and haphazardly says, let's put a couple little doors in down there, little low ones. And let's put some ply on the floor, and it's going to be a great storage space. In someone's mind, I'm sure they're thinking, this is a $300-$400 thing, some leftover timber. No, it's not. Okay, for a start, someone's got to cut through an already finished wall. They've then got to actually get the timber to go in there, which is typically going to be a brand new sheet of plywood, which is going to be a few $100s. That gets sawed up to get through the little opening. It gets relayed and screwed down because you're paying a professional to do it, right? Then you've got a door. Now, you can't just buy these doors off the shelf. These doors have to be made out of something. So your builder sits down and makes them. And, of course, your new house is very beautiful. So he takes his time to make some really nice cabinetry, buys some hinges, puts new architrave to finish around this set of doors. Then, of course, you need the painter to come in and touch it up and paint it all and make it look pretty. Lo and behold, you've spent $2,500 on a little cupboard you may or may not put 2 suitcases in. Yeah. Honestly, it sounds crazy. I see it all the time.
I'm nodding because we are exactly those people, and it's like you're in my head because those were my thoughts, and that was the result. Henry, what shouldn't we skimp on?
Well, I'm probably actually going to go back right to the beginning, and it's something, Carly, that I'd like to ask you about. What was your intention? What did you want? For me, that seems to be one huge factor in actual cost. People not understanding actually who they are and what the function is that they want to get out of these places. And it's probably more of an emotive thing. You know, people put down the structure, they put down the things that they want. But, you know, kind of case in point, flooring, for example. choosing the right flooring. If you've got kids and dogs, a solid wood floor is going to get munted pretty quickly. So, you know, your decision on why you've actually chosen things, you've really got to admit who you are, what the lifestyle is, and the requirements for it, you know, and that's something that I've spoken to Hamish about. And I'm going to bring up the dreaded V word, but, you know, there's some fantastic vinyls out there that, you know, 30-year guarantee for residential use and they're pet proof and things like that. Because that's been a huge cost. You know, people actually making the wrong selection, they're basing it on aesthetics. Another area particularly is kitchen, and kind of in a different way talking about storage. You know, admit who you are. If you can't reach it, don't put it in. You know, plenty of people say, you know, we want loads of storage, but if you can't actually use it, it's just a bit of a waste of money.
Yeah, so that's a conversation that you have with your builder or your architect at the start. And when they say, how do you want this space to be used? How do you want it to be? How do you want it to feel? I guess a layperson like me's, you know, first stumbling block is the fact that I'm thinking about the price and what's going to be within budget. And then secondly, how it's going to look rather than actually how it's going to function.
Oh, and definitely. And I think, you know, kind of kitchens can be quite a major one. If you've got, dare I say, height issues, you know, having a lot of tool storage, it's a bit of a waste of money if you can't actually reach it. So, you know, you're investing a lot of money in something that you're not going to use. And I think, you know, kind of a really important thing, it's not necessarily talking about structure, it's really who you are. Something, the story will organically start evolving from that. You know, and what's the lifestyle, you know, with children, you know, kind of softness of flooring, you know, you're going to think of spills, accidents, things like that, falling over. So, you know, things like concrete floors are, you know, intuitively going to be slightly off-putting. So it's a really fine balance, but instead of getting, you know, kind of caught up initially in what the structure is going to be, you know, it's just about what you want and how it's going to perform. And I think, you know, kind of another thing with cost, you know, which is a real challenge, which you've kind of brought up. You've got an initial idea of what your budget is and what the function is for it, but cost is the lifetime as well. If something doesn't last, or, you know, perhaps you go for a cheaper product, something that only lasts for 2 years is going to cost you, you know, kind of in the long term. You know, and it's, so you've got longevity, you've got use, you've kind of got, you know, the green things as well, you know, kind of a lot of that's kind of hidden. You know, I'm sure you've had that with your renovation with the insulation. You know, it's kind of like, I can't see it, so why should I bother investing in it? But, you know, that's going to really good insulation and higher levels. It's going to save you in heating bills. So you've got the ongoing costs as well. So it's quite a, it's a complex issue, but it can be really easily answered. You know, what is your intention? What do you want to get out of this? And organically, you know, you'll get a whole list of things together, and, you know, it's quite, it becomes easier to kind of formulate, you know, what you want from this. You know, is your kitchen a 5-year kitchen or is it a 20-year kitchen? You know, kind of, so then, you know, it gives you the motivation to actually invest in those things. So yeah, it's quite, it's a hard one because, you know, when you're presented with a whole lot of figures and you kind of go, ooh, but, you know, it's not from the point that you move in, it's, you know, 2 years down the track, 5 years down the track, you know, what money are you looking at investing in, you know, with the green things? Do you want to save money? So if you're running costs, if you're saving $100-200 a month on power bills, you know, that's quite significant. And then you can start drawing down, you know, the initial investment. So it's quite a long-term sort of objective as well.
That's a really great answer. And I guess, you know, planning and saving and spending more at the start will save you in the long run. You just have to be prepared for those maybe larger bills at the start. Hamish, just getting back to our, you know, our hunt to figure out how to cost up a renovation. One of the tricks that we missed was that we should have got a quantity surveyor to quote rather
Yes.
than the builder, because then, you know, it doubled and we've got our consent and we didn't understand that. So that was something that we learned. But is there a rule of thumb for a, you know, low, middle, high-end build per square metre? Is that a good way to start?
You will have heard in the olden days of $2,500 a square metre plus GST. Those days are pretty much gone. I think one thing to start with is everything comes down to scale, right? So the larger the property you're building, the square metre rate drops, because there's a lot of air in the middle that doesn't cost money, right? Whereas a small two-bedroom house with a small lounge and a small family room, you know, square metre rate could be on par with a much larger lounge and a much larger family room attached to it, because it's got the same amount of bathrooms, same toilet, same kitchen, same everything, right? So the bigger you go, you know, the square metre rate can drop. Plus, you get better buying power because you're buying larger volume of stones, you know. So using a quantity surveyor is a smart idea. I happened to be talking to an architect today, and he was saying to build a nice house, he said $4,000 plus GST a square metre is where we're at currently. You know, that as a guide, and I'll be honest, that was really good to actually be told that. People skirt around it because people don't know. You know, literally, you're picking a number out of thin air. If you're talking about your bog standard house, everything done the most cost-effective way possible, you might be able to bring that back 500 a square metre. And there'll be people out there who will say, "Oh, I can build something still for 2.5." Pretty thin on the ground, and it's probably a builder, you know, who's doing the work themselves. So you know, they've got access to better priced materials and things like that. But you hit the nail on the head. I've used a quantity surveyor. It was the first time I'd ever used one for any of my projects, and it was worth its weight in gold, to be perfectly honest. I had what the builder estimated it and the project manager estimated the costs, and then I had what the project manager, I had what the quantity surveyor had, and there was 20 grand difference. The quantity surveyor was 20 grand more. They said they've done a very good job, but we feel this, and this might pop up as problems. The quantity surveyors were $2,000 out.
Yep.
Now, that's nothing. I looked at that and I was like, they've done an incredible job. But more than that, when I got them in early and just off basic construction drawings, like a concept drawing for the house, which was scaled, granted, with products listed, I asked them to look at it. They said, yeah, that's about a $520,000 build. I did not have $520,000. I freaked out because my champagne taste on my beer budget had really kicked into overdrive. And I was looking at it going, okay, how's this going to be remedied? They then turned around and said, well, instead of having rafters, we're going to use a scissor truss, because that means you don't need to have a steel portal. And they step by step whittled what the cost was going to be back into what I could afford.
Yeah,
so that was worth it.
You know, we don't have, you know, there's this, I don't know if it's a New Zealand thing, there's this embarrassment around money. So
yeah.
You say you get the 520 cost and you sort of shut down. You're like, oh no, I don't want to talk about it anymore. That's obviously what it costs. I don't want to try and hustle them, because we're not that kind of society. But if you did say to them, well, goodness, I've only got 400. So what are the luxuries that we could do, or the plan Bs we could do later and do without now, in order to get that within budget? It's a conversation, right? It's not a.
Oh yeah.
It's not. But I feel like those conversations often don't happen.
No, they don't. People are shy. People don't want to pipe up. I'm not embarrassed about it. You know, there's certain things that I won't talk about money orientated wise, but there are other things that are kind of practical. And I think you've got to remember that the people who are working around you, if you've employed them as such to work on the job, they work for you. So don't be shy in saying, look, you know what? I can't afford this. How do we scale it back? I had no problem saying it. I knew I had to say something, otherwise I was not going to survive the night when I got home, you know, because I promised I wouldn't blow the budget. And we shrunk the house. So we made it 2 meters less in length, and I made it 1.5 meters narrower. And that made a huge difference to the square meterage of the property, because it's a rectangle box, and it scaled back a lot less. There was less labor, there was less cladding material, there's this concrete for the slab. all of it added up quite quickly. So I didn't really lose what I wanted. I just got a slightly smaller version of it. My wife lost the bathtub from the bathroom, which I will never be forgiven for. However, it was a conversation. I just had to be honest. I can't afford this. And the QS had great ideas to pare it back. I then forwarded that on to my architects who made the changes because they weren't precious as well. And together we achieved the goal.
I mean, Hamish, kind of an extension to that. With the conversations, how important do you think it is to look at the project holistically? Always find it interesting, when clients, they look at particular items and they just list A, B, C, D, E, and they're not really looking at compromise. And it's kind of really important that if this is going to be vital for your living, that you find a compromise somewhere else. I've had particular clients that have really wanted sculleries, which is square meter. They can be particularly expensive, but, of finding other solutions, having built-in pantries just running along the wall that cuts down a lot of space. And every meter is a square meter of thousands of dollars that you're potentially saving. And I think, another thing is, one issue is the economy of scale, especially working on apartments and things like that. A kitchen that's half the size is not half the price, and that's something that
no, it's not.
The QS clients, they can struggle about that, when it's just looking at things like that. So I think, as a designer, it's really important to, bring it all together for the client and really explain things. So what are your views on things like that?
Well, I mean, you're right about the scullery. I think we've got to kick off with what the actual definition of a scullery is. A true scullery, you walk into, it's got a secondary oven and cooktop. It's got a proper sink. It's where your dishwasher is. It's where a whole heap of things go on, and it's food storage. It is effectively a full second kitchen. I see all sorts of things described as sculleries, and the only things that are going in there is some food and a washing machine and a dryer. It's a laundry with food storage. So it depends what you're after. Scullery in its purest sense with all the cooking gear, it's expensive. You got a second range. You've got a second $5,500 range sitting in there for cooking on. They can be done more cost effectively, but they need to be of a decent space that you can actually cook, wash up, do all the stuff you'd normally do in a kitchen. It's tucked away. And if you make a bit of a mess while you're having a dinner party, it doesn't matter. The dishes just get put on the bench and there the door gets shut and you sit back down and have your sherry with your friends. So to pare that back, to me, I've had people that, you're not really shrinking the size of it, but you're ditching all the secondary cooking stuff and it basically becomes a large walk-in pantry. And at that point, you're dead right, Henry. Do you need a large walk-in pantry? Probably not. No, I know a lot of people who have kitchens, in particular, that have a lot of storage in it that is full of stuff they never touch.
Exactly. And that's kind of wasted money, but it's interesting, initially when you talk to clients, I think they just have ideas. Someone said, have a walk-in pantry. That's really important. Does it really improve your life? Is there more cost-effective ways of giving you storage?
Well, I'm going to butt in here because I'm the client. I'm the client that puts in the big scullery with the 3 kids that can make their toast and their cereal and their lunch boxes in it. And then I plan on closing the door and I'll just try and put that wee little cesspit out of my mind for the rest of the day while I try and do some work. Yeah. I'm wondering if I could have gotten away with. No,
they're perfect. If you've got the space and you've got the money, they're absolutely perfect. But, especially when for the whole project, there's so much cost involved and, things like that can be a luxury. And there's some amazing alternatives. You've got Bloom products and you've got the space towel with the pull-out shelves, which, strangely, you can cut down the space by half, but have as much storage as you would with a walk-in pantry. So it's things like that if you can do it and you've got the money, absolutely perfect. But I think it's the intention at the beginning and knowing exactly where you stand, because people come in with their heart set on things, and it's kind of like, oh, you just can't.
Absolutely, and I am that person. Hamish, I was just thinking about, you mentioned the things that typically people go over with. Electrical has been one of the big ones for me, because we did the electrical walkthrough, and I thought, oh yeah, we'll get a USB here. Oh, we'll get a outdoor heater here. Oh, we'll add this. And I sort of thought that we've got a caravan railroll put in for our caravan that might get plugged in once a year. Didn't realise that was going to be $600, So I sort of got a little bit caught short on that. That's a bit of a caution, I guess. But I guess it's really hard to imagine what the space is going to be like on drawings. You can do your best, but until you're in there and walking through, that is when we've found that some of the variations have come up, because we're actually in the space and imagining ourselves in there.
Yeah, I mean, look, the electrical thing catches many, many, many people. Once upon a time, a long time ago, about 5 years ago, I used to work a lot with an electrical company that did a lot of group homes. And they were very, very nice homes. They were $2 million builds, so they were very bespoke, and they were lovely homes. But for some reason, the company was still coming out of the mode of the 2007 crash, where to get work, you had to say, I can build your house for this. But then all the true costs would probably come out later on, where you realize there was one PowerPoint in a bedroom on one side of the bed. So then by then, I'd walk around with the client, we'd start adding them in. And I was told by the electrical company that handled all these jobs, I was like, give me an idea, give me a ballpark. And they said between $80 and $100 per point you add in. Because you've got the PowerPoint itself, you've got the labor, you've then got to run all that wiring back to the switchboard. So they said, if you think between $80 and $100 per one you add in, that's going to give you an indication. Well, that adds up, right? That really starts to add up. You can spend another $2,500 very quickly by adding extra PowerPoints in. Oh yeah, I'll put one in the hallway over here, and it just grows, right? And then you've got data, and yes, you've got USB ports. There's all these different things you can plug in these days, so it can get carried away very quickly. The caravan outdoor plug, totally get that as a trap. It's not just the plug that's on the outside of the house. It's the phase that might need to be run back to the meter board. There's all sorts of bits and pieces that need to be done. Surge protectory things on the wall. I'm no electrician, but they add up. And I know this because I did the same thing as you. I said, I want 2 outdoor PowerPoints down at Kuratau, so as if my friends with caravans came, they could just plug in lots of extra taps so they could just click on their water. That's brilliant. But that cost, and that probably was a cost that I would say those outdoor PowerPoints have been used twice, and that was for me to plug a stereo in one Christmas because the battery went flat in the UE boom. I mean, what a great investment that's turned out to be. So yeah, electricity, and saying yes and assuming something is a good idea because you're passionate about it is not always a good idea. You need to go, hey, hang on, how much is that? It doesn't mean that you're stingy. It doesn't mean you can't afford it. It doesn't mean people are going to look at you and think poorly of you for asking. A sensible person would ask. But I know exactly what you mean. You're in the moment, you're doing the thing, and I go, oh yeah, okay, I'll have that. And honestly, probably 3 hours later, I'm going, ooh, I wonder what that's actually going to cost, And then I get asked, did you ask? And I went, no. Have they done it? And I went, yes. Oh, okay. Well, there's trouble. And I've forked out for stuff that I really didn't need. So, yeah, that is a bit of an issue. But to be honest, it's something we all do. And if you've only done one thing like that for $600, you've done so well.
There might need to be another confessions of Carly's renovation podcast at some point. Hey, great to chat, guys. Just to sum things up, planning will help save you money. Thinking about how you want to live and how you live, and future-proofing your home and doing it right first and once will save you money as well. And locking in anything you can early to save on those last minute decisions, you know, those extra windows, if you add them into the original schedule, that's not going to cost you so much in the long run. Anything else, Henry?
Well, I think there's an interesting topic which we can talk about, green innovation, probably in another one. But you know, for Hamish, for you, was that something you kind of thought about? You know, kind of solar and cost saving as far as those things. I know water retention, detention is starting to become quite a big issue. You know, especially in a lot of these smaller towns that are hit heavily with tourism over summer, and we're all starting to get affected by water shortages. But it's you know, looking at the benefits, really, you know, if you can invest in it, you know, do it now. But you know, kind of, I think going back to the wiring issue, you know, always think of the future. I think, you know, we've got the future of electric cars, pre-wire for having you know, a power source for that, because that's going to become, you know, potentially part of your reality. To do it afterwards, it costs so much. To do it, you know, while you're in the building process, just to put the wiring in with the possibility of the connection, you know, it might cost you $500 instead of thousands. So, you know, think about those.
I'm forward thinking.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you one last thought before we have to disappear. On the putting in charging for an electric car.
Yeah.
The standard thing to do really these days is to put a 3-phase charge system into the garage. Okay. Now there's a problem with this, and that's that the giant green boxes that you sometimes notice that are littered around our city on the corners are only built to handle so many 3 phases running in a street. So if you're going to buy an electric car, you need to understand that in your street, you may not be able to have 3-phase charging, and you may only be able to use a plug into a standard wall, which is going to take overnight to charge your car, no rapid charging in your house. So inquire about that, because if that's super importance to you, that you can charge your electric car quickly, you may not actually be able to get 3-phase into your house if too many other people have done it in the street.
Yeah, and kind of an extension to that, one more thing just about appliances. It leads on from that induction. Induction's going to, that's got,
that needs 3-phase.
Quite big questions. So, you know, you're kind of getting stuck into the 3-phase. So it's really, really important to know the benefit and understand if you want to go down that route.
You know what? Let's make 3-phase a topic.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I was just going to say, it's like ending or finishing a great chapter where you get teased for the next thing that must be spoken about. We are going to end it there. If you like what you're listening to, give us a like on this podcast, share it with your friends, and we'd love to hear from you as well. Best way to get in touch with Henry, myself, or Hamish is to go to @thegoodlifebydesign on Instagram, and we will talk more, no doubt, real soon. Bye.
Definitely. See you later. Bye.